Okay, so welcome to the second session of our Small Scale Big Impact series. This series is designed to offer professional learning to support event organisers with core event management skills. This event is hosted in partnership by Inspiring the ACT and the Australian Science Communicators, the ACT branch. If you did miss the first session, it was on organising an event, and the recording is available on the Inspiring the ACT website, which I will share in the chat for you to access, but you don't need to have seen that first webinar to understand this one. They do lead into each other, but they are quite separate and different presenters. So I'll put that link in the chat for you there. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I'm coming from today, and that is the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would like to extend that acknowledgement and respect to the traditional owners of the lands that you are all signing in from today, and I encourage you to each post in the chat what country you are signing in from so we can see where everyone's from and learn the different lands across Australia. So today we are going to have a presentation on how to promote an event, and then we'll move into a Q&A with the speaker. All of your questions, you can submit questions at any time. We won't be addressing them till the end though. Questions are addressed if you want to submit them. There's a little speech bubble on the right-hand side of your screen with a question mark in it. That's where you put your questions. So all of those, if you submit them at any time, will come through. The one without the question mark is the chat function. So that's where you can post in if you want to have, a chat with any of the other people that are on today. So if you do have any technical issues, please post these in the chat function so our team can address them, but questions need to go in the one with the question mark. Just letting you all know this event is being recorded and will be shared after the event. So if you do need to duck out or you miss something, it will be here for future reference. And at the end of the session, we'll have a poll with 5 different questions. I'll let you know when it's time to do that, but it's very useful for us if you can complete that poll, just so we get a gauge of how you felt the session went and other things that you might want to get from it. So without further ado from me, I would like to introduce Todd Wright from Threesides Marketing. He's here to share insights for promoting an event. Thank you, Todd.
Thanks very much, Gillian, and let me share with you today. I'm going to take you through a presentation that we've developed, and the first thing I need to tell you about running events is no 2 events are ever the same. So what I talk about today is going to be a collection of experiences that I've developed over the last probably 20 years of being involved with and running events. If everybody can think back to when that first event was that they actually ran, was it something that you asked to do because you thought it'd be a great idea? Was it something that you volunteered to do, or was something that you were forced to do and coerced to do? And it was a really bad experience, but you learn a lot from it. I thought, yeah, next time I run an event, I'm going to make it fantastic. For a lot of people, events and running events, they're doing it for the first time. So there's always this lack of knowledge from your organisation, or you've just got involved. I once found out that somebody got involved with an event because during a committee meeting they went off to the toilet, and there was meant to be a hands up for who wanted to be on the event subcommittee, and they were actually volunteered. So it doesn't matter how you join events, you're here. And today what I want to do is share with you my experiences in running events. I run a lot of events in the PR space of my business. So my business is called Threesides Marketing, based here in your nation's capital of Canberra. I know we've got some people connecting from across Australia today, and I'm just looking after it for you on behalf of all Australians. But I love Canberra. It's a fantastic place to run events. It's a fantastic place to run a business as well. And my business, Threesides Marketing, we're an integrated marketing agency. So we'll do everything from digital marketing to media and PR, event activation. We'll do social media, advertising, organising, and we provide end-to-end services. If you know anything about Canberra, you'll probably have seen some of these businesses before, but you also might know them on a national level as well. So we're proud of the work that we do, and it gives us a lot of experience across a lot of different areas. And today I want to share that experience with you. Today's experiences are not theoretical. I'm not reading from a textbook, although I can tell you that I did actually present an event management unit at the University of Canberra in a very long ago previous life. So I've been through the academic side of it, but until you've been through the experience of running a large or a small scale event yourself, you don't really know what it's going to be like. These days I spend a lot more time helping my clients actually run the marketing and promotion side of it. So that's what I'll be spending my time on today. Here's a bit of an overview for you. It's going to be really simple. You registered for today's event and you would have read the blurb, and hopefully that blurb was well written. I'm going to talk about writing blurbs today. But the simple fact of it is I'm going to give you a lot of different marketing ideas. Today's slide deck will be shared with you after the session. And if you do anything over the next couple of weeks, I definitely recommend you do a bit of R&D, a bit of rip off and duplicate. You can have these slides, steal this deck. All of these ideas are things that we've developed or we've learned or been taught from other people. So as part of the Inspiring the ACT series, it's about providing these skills back to you, back to the STEM community and the event organising community, so you can actually improve the job that you're doing. So please take everything that we talk about today. Nothing's copyrighted, and all good ideas came from somebody else's idea. So take what I talk about today and build on it, innovate and grow it. So that's what I'd love to see. If you've got questions at the end today, I'll endeavour to answer as many as possible, and we'll make sure we leave time for them. And please make sure you hit us up throughout the session. We'll pull those questions together. I've also got a few questions that were asked before the session, and we'll make sure that we'll get to those towards the end. Today I want to talk about a lot of different things, but I also want to talk about this big thing, which is creating content around your event as well. So what I want you to do to start with your event, I don't want you to start by saying, you know what we need? A Facebook page, or let's start by jumping onto Eventbrite and registering a ticket. I don't ever want you to start by working out how much we're going to charge for a ticket, or maybe it's free. The first thing I want you to actually do is to start by coming up with a bit of a plan. And this is where a lot of events fail, is everybody gets really excited. Events have this mystery around them that it's really exciting. There's a lot of adrenaline leading up to an event, and then all of a sudden it runs and someone goes, but what about, did we consider, where is a plan is going to make sure that you can actually answer a lot of those questions before we get to it. And the old saying, failing to plan is, you're planning to fail. Make sure that you spend probably the first 10% of your time coming up with a really good plan, because then the next 90% of your time is going to be spent accurately. If you start without a plan, I can tell you that you're going to be all over the place, and the only thing that you're going to get from this event is a migraine, not 150 people turning up or 300 people turning up to your event. So have a think about the actual reasons why you're running an event and why we're even promoting this event. And it might simply be to get people to attend, generate leads and interest, to drive demand and get people to come along. You might have a bigger aim, and I know your aim is normally education, or your aim is to actually get people engaged with the content. So have a think about not just getting people along, but how during our marketing phase, can we get them to come along on the journey to understand what they're going to see, what they're going to experience, and why they should invest their time in it. One of the biggest, fails that I see people do is they go, oh, no, don't give away the punchline, don't tell people exactly what it's going to be. They'll be surprised when they get here. Well, I don't want you to be surprised that nobody turned up because they didn't actually understand what they were registering for, and they didn't think that it was worth it. So it's your job to actually feed that information out and build that excitement. Why do you think movies have trailers? And okay, normally sometimes it's to ruin the movie because they put all the best bits in there. But think about promoting your event like you would promote a movie. They develop a trailer which is a really quick highlights reel of what you're going to see. They put the main actors out there to talk about it before the release or just after the release to say, go and see it. They have different event activations where there'll be ways that you can experience or see it. And Fair enough. You might not have the $4 million blockbuster budget that you have, but think like a blockbuster. How can we tease the information out? How can we get people excited? And how can we give them an invitation about what they're about to see? Marketing is a promise. So how can we make a promise that what you're going to see is interesting and exciting? One of the final reasons why you're promoting your event or why you're developing your event might be brand building or growing your community. One of your greatest aims might be to run this event to get people to get involved later in your organisation, or after the fact. It might just be an event to connect with people the first time because you've got 5 other things on this year and you want to make a really great launch to that. You might sell memberships to an organisation. You might invite them along to something else, and this is just their first introduction. So don't just hang everything on people coming once, getting to the end of your event after an hour, 2 hours, or a day, depending on what you're running, and say, that's it. You need to think about your event as the start of a relationship with these people. So if we're going to get their contact details, if they're going to spend time with us, where are we going to give them a return on their investment, and what is their long-term reward? Something I want you to think about is, what is the overall lifetime customer value of this person participating in my event for the first time? So start by thinking about why we're even here in the first place. Before I go on, let me tell you about a few key lessons that I've learned over the last 20 years of promoting or being involved with organising events. Up front, get your objectives, timelines and target audiences before you begin promoting your event. I'm going to take a wild guess at this and say that you've got a committee and it's called the Event Management Committee or the Event Committee, or insert name of event here committee. Getting everybody on that same page and actually agreeing on who we'll be actually speaking to is really, really important. Reduce the friction and reduce the arguments later. But also what I want you to do is be able to say no to things. There's going to be lots of ideas that everybody comes up with and feels they want to do, and they've got a friend of a friend that can help us with this. But with that, if we understand our right audience, then we can actually confidently say no to things as well as say yes. Double your time. Depending on what your lead time is, just double it and say, all right, well, we've got 3 months leading up to our event and we're planning on spending 2 hours a month promoting your event, make it 4. We're spending on 2 hours a week promoting the event, make it 4. We're going to be spending 10 hours on this element of it, make it 20. Don't underestimate the effort that it requires that actually goes into an event. And if you plan some longer lead times, then you might be disappointed. If you're in Canberra, I can tell you one thing about events that I've been involved in is Canberrans are spoiled for choice and proximity. And they have this really bad habit of registering at the last minute. So I've seen interstate event organisers cancel things because they haven't hit early milestones for pre-ticket sales. And I can tell you in Canberra that if you can run the risk of keeping it going to the last second, provided that you've got a good community behind it, Canberrans will leave it to the last minute. In other parts of Australia, you may have to set your expectations based on the responsiveness of your own market. But in Canberra, I can tell you that they definitely are last minute registrations. Has that changed in COVID? Well, I'd like to say that it has. And I definitely know that it's changed the ability for people to go to restaurants and you have to book in advance, and there's kind of no such thing as a walk-in anymore. With your events, you're probably going to have the same. You have to have a registration. So think like a music festival. Have different stages of release of your ticket. So have an early bird release where if you're charging for a ticket, maybe it's an early bird price. Or by releasing early, you get VIP access, or you get that front up there. So have a think about how you can actually make sure that your time aligns with your audience and their expectations, but make sure you plan longer times than you expect if you're organising an event for the first time. Take easy first steps when promoting your business or promoting your event. Like, don't just think there's going to be this one great solution that if I sign up on this website, then my event's going to go to all these places. It's not. You need to create a marketing mix, and you need to create multiple small activations or multiple small marketing tactics that can build up. And in marketing, we call that the marketing mix. So for your promotional event mix, you're going to have multiple things that all fill up to the big result of running your event. So make sure you're doing the simple things. And when I talk about simple things, I talk about arm's reach. What are the things right in front of us? And these are the family and friends tactics. And by that, I mean, can you invite your family and friends to start with? Because all good word of mouth tactics actually start by having somebody that understands, knows, or trusts what you're doing. So if you can actually invite people that know, invite your networks, then you can start spreading from there. Don't go for the big sellout straight away. Ramp your expectations up and ramp your activities up over time. And it could also save you money in the long run, because if you could get everybody to book that event out and you've only got a really small budget as part of your grant or part of your sponsorship, if you've been able to get sponsors for your event, you want to be able to spend as least as money of that as possible on advertising, because advertising just gets them to the event. It doesn't actually deliver the event. So if you can get your marketing done for early as possible, for the least amount as possible, that's great. For other people, you will have to have a really good budget to make sure that you can spend on things where you can. But I know and understand that a lot of you are running community events and we don't have bottomless pockets. So always be thinking about how you can double, triple, quadruple the value of your activities by using your networks and things that are within arm's reach. And finally, it's 2021, people. If you aren't using an online ticketing system for event registration and also on site at your event to make sure that people have come, number one, you're probably not going to meet your COVID safe event guidelines for starters because you don't have a really good way to track them. But number two, it's all about convenience. If I can conveniently understand what your event is, and I've seen it a few times, and one person's question was, how do you avoid saturating it? Just have multiple ways of talking about it between now and when your event actually runs. But every time you talk about it, have a really quick and easy way for me to register. Because if my life is anything like yours, I'm busy. And I found about your event last night, sitting on the couch, scrolling through Instagram and going, that looks really interesting. I probably should have spoken to other people in the house, asking if they wanted to go. And I thought, no, I could book that. Check my calendar, I booked it straight away. So the fact that you've got a really convenient way to register is actually part of your customer service and your customer experience. So make sure that you've got a really simple booking process. Today, I'll talk about Eventbrite, and you use Eventbrite to come on today's session. It just works, right? If you're running free events, it's also free. If you're running paid events, then there's a fee attached to it for credit card processing, and there's cheaper ways of doing it. But if you're looking for cheaper ways, well, it might be more expensive on time or might be more expensive on resources. So always make sure that you balance those resources, which is money, people, and time. So make sure you balance your resources, and your online booking website can be a really great example of something that is something that helps out with those resources. In today's presentation, I'm going to reference an event that was run by a contact of mine. It was called the Urban Hustle. It ran in Canberra. It was supported through a small events grant from the ACT government. And the Urban Hustle was essentially city orienteering, where you get given a map and you have to go to different places, but it's pitched like the Amazing Race. So when you get somewhere, you have to do a challenge. And that challenge might be a physical challenge, might be a mental challenge, or it might be a quiz, or it might be a puzzle, or it might be, collect a certain number of items. It was a fun, easy to understand event, and I'll be referencing them as a few times throughout today's presentation. You might not be running an event like this, and you might be running a lecture. You might be running a hands-on workshop. You might be running something that involves people going on a bushwalk or getting into nature. Doesn't matter what your event is, all the same lessons apply. You just need to scale those ideas to things that really apply to you and are going to work for you. So pick the eyes out of the ideas that we have today, insert your name here, and then take it from there. All right, I think you got my theme today. Start with a plan. The first thing that I want you to do when you start with a plan is actually start by analysing your situation. And not everybody's into planning. Your events committee or your group, or maybe you're organising this event by yourself. This is a little bit harder to do when you're doing it by yourself, or maybe it's harder to do if you've got 3 or 4 people in the room, but answer some simple questions. What does your organisation do, and how do people currently see us? Start there, because is this an event that somebody has run before? Is my audience expecting it? Or is this a brand new thing? And people don't expect our organisation to be running events. So if it is, we're going to have to make sure that that comes through in our communications. What makes your brand or what makes your event different? Do a bit of research out in the marketplace, see who else is running events like this, and what's your point of difference? Because if there's 2 or 3 similar events, and especially during Science Week, there's going to be heaps of stuff happening, but your event might be happening at another time. So remember, you're competing for share of somebody's time, but also share for somebody's experience. So you need to find what that point of difference is, and that's something that you can really leverage. I want you to think about what your objectives and goals are for the event. Your objective or goal might be to have really small participation, but a really high quality niche experience. Never start an event by saying, we just need to get 1,000 people and then design, your experience goals from there. Please start with your experience goals, because that will actually help you understand how to set some of your participation goals. So if you can actually start there and start think about some of the objectives and end goals for the event, remember, it might be to get people involved over the next year, and that will determine how you actually create that. And then the final is how you can best achieve these objectives. Marketing and advertising are some of these ways that you can help achieve those objectives. But it might not be everything. It might be sponsorship. It might be, working out your event logistics. And that's where the other sessions in the Inspiring the ACT series actually come in. So have a think about which of your actual goals and objectives can marketing best support. I probably recommend that they can support a number of them, but make sure that you've actually got these written down. So just to let you know, a plan is only a set of ideas until you write it down. So I definitely need you to write it down. So the last, I've got 2 more things to talk about planning. I know you're here for the sexy promotional ideas, all right? Okay, I understand that, but remember I told you planning was important up front. I want you to set SMART goals. So how can you actually have specific, measurable, and achievable or attainable goals? I need them to be relevant to what you're actually doing, and I need them to actually be timely or time bound. So just say, to get 100 people, not a SMART goal. Let me give you an example of what a SMART goal actually is. So get 150 people registered with tickets and attending the event by the 30th of May 2021. So the event might actually be on in September or August, that's fine, right? But specific, it's 150 people. Measurable, I know that I need 150 people because I've got 200 seats. If I've got 150 people registered by then, I can go to my event booking system and I can actually see it. So I can point to that number. Achievable. Well, how many did we get for last year's event if we've run it before? Well, we only got 70. Well, is doubling in number really achievable this year? Or last year we got 300. So 150 should be easily achievable. What do we do if we sell out? Relevant to your event. So relevancy is that number, but also the time. So is it relevant that we have 150 people by May if the event is until August? It might not be relevant. So make sure in your goal, you've actually set relevancy there and timeliness. We've put a date on it. As soon as you give me a date, as soon as you give me the ability to measure it and be specific, I can do, or you can do, the following things. You can set milestones. Okay, if we need to be at 150 by the 30th of May, we might need to be 100 by the 30th of April. If we need 150 by the end of May, how did we get people to attend last year? Is having a Facebook page going to be enough? Do we actually need to get out there and promote it? Do we need to have a launch by the 1st of May? So you can see that our tactics and what we choose relies on our goals and what we've actually said that we're going to do. So we can set our milestones, and there are sub-stages before our big goals are actually set. Then we can choose our tactics that link to each of those milestones. Then we can also work out the realistic outcome and what resources are going to be required. So remember resources, I told you we're 3 when it comes to event. So it's time, money, and people. So how much time do we need? Double it. Okay, you remember that one. How much money do we need, and who are the people that are actually going to do it? Make sure when it comes to budgeting, and I won't spend too much time talking about money today, everyone's got a different budget, but when it comes to budgeting, always set it as a percentage of your ticket price. Or also set it as a goal. What do you think it's going to cost you to get one ticket sold, and then multiply it, and then from that you can choose some of your tactics. So it's your cost per acquisition. These are some of the things that you can measure. I'm in marketing, I'm not in accounting, I'll leave budgeting there, but really be smart about what you're spending your money on. Well, actually, maybe I need to talk about budgeting because the next idea is talk about it as well. Here is, remember I told you you can rip off and duplicate any part of this. I'm going to supply the next resource just before you see the next slide and go, wow, that's a lot of information. I'm going to supply the next resource as a bit of a template. It'll be an editable PowerPoint slide. And what this is a copy of a tactical marketing map. Starting from the top, we have our marketing objectives or goals. We actually write these down. And remember, I gave you the example of the Urban Hustle. The company name was Fully Rad Adventures. And this was run in Civic in Canberra. So one of their aims was to get at least 5% of civic businesses involved in this, and 5% of civic businesses, for argument's sake, was 50 businesses. So they set a goal of getting 50 businesses involved. They had a target of 150 ticket sales for event participation, which would have been 10% growth on the previous year. And the final one was to actually make sure that the spread of businesses and the people involved was broad enough so people went to businesses that they hadn't been to before, because one of the aims was to get people finding places of the city, of Braddon, and of the New Acton precinct that they hadn't found before. So discovery was actually one of their goals. So having a think about, the event experience as being one of your event goals, not just event attendance. Under the key messages, when they were going out in media, when they were going out to actually talk to people and businesses, they talked about the event being local family operated. They talked about it being a great adventure. They used the word adventure when they talked about it. And they talked about it being run as Australia's most rad outdoor event entertainment activity. Anyone that uses the word rad in marketing, I just think is definitely out there. And I think these guys did well, but it helps when your company is called Fully Rad. So there you go, rad is not dead. We talked about target audiences and who were their primary audiences. And then we also talked about what were the primary channels and the secondary channels that they were using. And today I'll talk about this setup of paid, owned and earned. And I'll introduce you to the concept of what paid, owned and earned tactics actually are. Paid is where you spend money to find strangers. Owned tactics are things that you own as an organisation, and earned tactics are things that you want people to do for you that you can't control. Having a balance between those three channels means that you've got a good spread right across the tactical spectrum. And you don't need to go to uni to study marketing or events marketing to be able to use this model. It's really quite simple. The final part of this plan, and remember, I'll give this to you, you can fill in the boxes, is your analytics and reporting. So what metrics are we going to use? Event participation, tick. What about participant feedback on the day? Well, that means we need to do a survey. How are we going to do that? Will we email it to them, or will we have it available for them? What about event registration data and what dates that they're doing? What about website data? There's a number of different ways that we're going to be able to evaluate this grant. You need to think about evaluation because, number one, if you've got a grant, you're going to need to acquit it. But number two, if you've got sponsors, you're going to have to show them engagement levels and understanding and awareness. But number three, you might be part of a committee that has to hand this event over to somebody the next year. First party or primary research is the gold dust of event management. I've been involved in a lot of committees that start by saying, we've run this event for 6 years. We have no documentation. Oh my God, kill me now. Are you joking? What have we been doing for the last 6 years? Oh, someone had the file and they've moved to Adelaide. Yeah, well, can they just send it back? Oh, wasn't like a computer file. It was like a folder of like stuff. And when they moved house, just seriously, I've heard every excuse for why this event doesn't have any previous history, but also sometimes you're just relying on volunteers that don't have a lot of experience. So they don't know that documentation now is going to equal some really great outcomes later. I was just speaking to the event manager of the Air Force 100 Centenary flyover in Canberra, and as that event rolled over, there were 60 Air Force planes coming from every corner of Australia to fly over Canberra in a 2-hour period. This required significant organisation, and I can tell you that it's an event that had never been done before. Their debrief is going to take about 2 weeks, because as they went along, they had to design a lot of the, I guess, approach, the documentation, the event governance, the rollout there, debriefing at every level of the Air Force, and even the people that are professionals necessarily were running an event for the first time. They knew how to run events, but they knew how to run on the ground events or in the air events or air shows or small flyovers, and all of a sudden they brought them all together. So it doesn't matter on what level that you're running this, everyone's always playing catch up in the documentation area. And even if you wrote an event manual for somebody, next year's event's going to change. It's Murphy's Law. We don't know what's coming down the road, and especially after the last 12 months, it's even harder. So make sure that you develop a really great attitude of documentation, and please, under any circumstance, share the passwords with any websites that you create, or the email list, or the logons for different things that you do. Save what you do in multiple places, and like some ancient talismans, split it into parts and share it with 4 people. So if 3 people get lost in a cyclone, a whirlwind, or a pandemic, 1 person still has a part of the magic key for running this event again. So it is really important. So here's the pay, don't, and earn. I talked about this just before. This will be in the slide deck later. We split up the tactics. What are we paying to do? That's to find strangers that don't know you yet, where we buy share of voice over here, normally advertising. Owned media is all of your own channels. You own your own website. That's an owned channel. You own your own social media. That's an owned channel. Running an event, that's an owned channel. And then you have it earned is when other people can actually promote you. So paid, owned, and earned. Remember, put all your ideas into those 3 different buckets. So here's 7 ideas. You'll probably break it down and find out and talk about more today, but here's 7 ideas to help promote your event. And here's 7 ideas to start with, right? You could be talking about this for hours and hours and hours, get a big event marketing for dummies, but here's the 7 things that I think you should actually start with. Number 1 is having a reliable web presence. 2 is set up ticketing, and number 3 is get your social media firing. I want you to think about media and PR. Media and PR is great for events because there's normally something visual, something they can talk about, and it's new, the latest and greatest coming to your town, coming to your city. I'm going to talk about mainstream and non-traditional or digital media there. I want you to increase your digital listings. That's a really simple one. Where can we list our site online? Because we want to be able to turn up in small ways across the web. I want you to get your own networks humming. And I also want you to build a street team. If you've never heard what a street team is, stick around to the end and I'll let you know. So here's step number 1. Yes, it's create a website. Well, let me call it a web presence. It's not good enough to have a Facebook page for your event anymore, because as you saw a few months ago, what if Facebook changes the rules all of a sudden? They said, due to some Australian government law, now event owners we have to pay for event owners to be on our platform, so we're going to charge, but actually we don't agree with the law, so we're going to stop everything. Well, that's what happened to the news media just a few months ago in Australia. And remember, it went dark. You don't control Facebook. So I want you to be able to set up your own presence. And that brings fear into some people's veins. For others, you go, yeah, cool, we've got a website, move on. If you don't have a website, you need a domain name, and you also start really simply. Think about a Squarespace, Wix, or WordPress website where you can get a template site, start with an event template, put all your information up there, and for small dollars, you're going to be able to create and own your own presence, which is important because you need a central call to action. If people want more, if you've listed your event on Eventbrite, people want more information, they can go back to your website. They don't have to go off to another social media site that might have changed. They can go back to your website and get current information. Over the years also, build the background for the event, because last year's photos, last year's video, or even just last year's blurb or last year's program or agenda is going to give people a really great indication of what they can expect this year. And remember, your event promotion doesn't start as soon as you launch it. It starts as soon as you finish last year's event. So can you actually make sure that you've got a really good email list that you can get people to come to and redirect them back to this web presence? And so this is really important. This is why I put this as number 1. Remember, share the login details with as many people as possible. And normally, I would say that's really bad cybersecurity, I guess, approach or practice. But I want your event to live on. So please make sure that you never use the excuses that John's got the logins or Sally didn't share them with us before she went to Hobart. So I'll see how many towns around Australia that I can lose people to over time. Ticketing, set up an Eventbrite event. I talked about it before. Use online ticketing and think about your online ticketing as an event promotional tool. You might just think of it as an operational tool, but like me, you might actually have been to so many Eventbrites that you clicked, yeah, show me notifications when you downloaded the mobile app. Setting up your event in Eventbrite is kind of like selling a product on eBay. It's a really large marketplace for events. So actually having a presence, there will be a number of people that actually find your event by accident whilst looking for another event by registering, because it'll say, here's other events around you. And some people always press allow those notifications and say, yeah, keep me up to date. Some people will subscribe to that email and they say, yeah, send me a monthly digest of things that are on. So not only having your event ticketing website is great, but it also means that you have information out there in multiple ways. Create a really great blurb. So coming down to social media definitely is the lifeblood for events in the modern age. Social media is disruption media essentially, because you didn't know that it was coming and you're just waiting for someone to put it in front of you and you've already subscribed to these followings. I'm going to talk about the importance to actually build your following to make your social media content worthwhile, but pick your poison. Facebook, Instagram, definitely the two big ones leading. LinkedIn still important. Do you actually want to extend it through corporate networks? So don't write LinkedIn off. Twitter, still alive. You know, Donald Trump didn't kill it for everybody. So have a think about whether Twitter can be great. Really handy for media as well, getting it out there. So if you've got a small presence on Twitter, definitely goes down the list. Someone challenged me and said, what about TikTok or Snapchat? Yeah, great. If you can pull off promoting your event with a TikTok video, it comes back to one of those first questions I asked you. Audience. I know someone watching today is actually the mum of someone that works for us, and I'm not going to name them, but my challenge is for that person to get on TikTok and think how they could promote their school's event. So you know who you are. So have a think as we go through, what is the best platform for you, because it's going to take time to maintain it. This isn't a set forget space. I want to talk about making sure that you've got a really great event description, but I want to introduce you to creating content that can be scheduled over time. And remember, I talked about that teaser. I want you to actually get it out there. So I want you to think about your header image when you're listing your event on any of these social media sites. Create me a montage. I want you to think about, can you help me understand where it is? Because in your town or in your city, especially in Canberra, where the event is, it's going to be 50% of the first, I guess, commitment to it. Are you running an event that's close to me and it's 5 Ks down the road, or are you running an event that's going to be an hour from me up the road in Goulburn? So you need to think about making it really clear that you can understand where and that sense of place for your event. Also make sure that you include some FAQs. People are going to have questions and you're not going to be there to answer them all the time. So make sure that you actually think ahead and give them some of these frequently asked questions. And although they might not be frequently asked, you're actually just using them as prompters and idea starters. So help be that customer service desk before it even starts. And finally, schedule your content. You know, I know, we all know that you can actually schedule your content way ahead of time. So if you've got 3 months to go, start developing a content schedule. Have a think about what is one post a week that we could create for this event up until the event runs. So if you've got 12 weeks until your event, what is one thing that you could talk about in the lead up over the next 12 weeks? So it's 12 posts. Those 12 posts should not say, tickets now open, tickets now really open, tickets now really, yeah. So I want you to actually think about sharing the experience. Go behind the scenes, announce a new speaker, talk about the volunteers that are organising it, create some video. Don't just create static posts with writing. Actually do an interview with the people, because people get behind people that are supporting things. Show them your passion. Show them how interested they could actually get in your event. Or find other people that could do it for you. So here's one of those ideas, and that's developing influencers. Are there other people in social media that could actually help get it out there? And here I'm not talking about get Kim Kardashian on board and promote your event. It's not going to happen. I'm talking about in your community, in your arm's reach network, who are the people that have 1,000 or more connections on social media, and we can treat them as an influencer. They're a micro-influencer. So if they say something, how many people are watching? And then could we get 5 or 6 people to put it out on social, and what would we actually do? Well, we actually sit down and say, what kind of content would you like? Can we do a video with you? What are you actually interested in? So have a think about if you're running an actual event that has a paid ticket, could you give them a free ticket to come along and attend? It's not a high cost, but if they can actually promote your event this year and put it out there, then remember your promotion has started 12 months in advance. Access, VIP, and also other ways to think about it. It's really great. So think about different ways that you can get people involved. Now I want to quickly talk about media, and a lot of people think that media is this big mysterious thing. It's not. Traditional media is definitely declining. It's kind of dying in Australia a bit, which is a bit sad. Good journalism isn't dying though, so finding good people that are willing to tell your story for you. Here I'm talking about the media side of PR. So having a good media release or a press release to get it out there, having a media event or somewhere and a spokesperson that they can talk to who's going to be your mouthpiece, having an alert, so leading up to the event, a few weeks out, getting people to actually attend and tell the story. Writing a good media release is part of, there's a National Science Guide and there's some tips in there, and I'll talk about that at the very end. But writing a good media release is only part of it. Finding the people that can help tell your stories is another thing. You might have remembered the satellite selfie. I think this is a really fantastic example. If you go back to this satellite selfie example, this came initially from media outreach. The media can't promote something or publish something by finding it themselves. It's really hard. Investigative journalism takes ages. So what they do is they rely on multiple people and multiple organisations sending them relevant information. Then after that, they'll go, great, where's the story in this? Where can I go? Who can I show? And who can I speak to? And where's my photograph or where's my video? If you can create all of these things, you will get the publication out. You'll get the public publicity that you're looking for. Satellite Selfie had all of those things involved. But they also did the effort at the front end of it, and they went out and they did the outreach. So it doesn't just happen by itself. Use listings across the web. I'm going to tell you about something called the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. Every state in Australia, tourism authority subscribes to this. In New South Wales, it's called Get Connected. In Canberra, it's called the ATDW. It's managed by Visit Canberra. You are able to list your event on their site, and it goes out to multiple publishers across Australia that takes event information. It is Australia's largest event listing database, behind Facebook. So have a think about using the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, even if it's not a tourism event, yours is an education event or whatever it is, it can go into the ATDW. Also, have a look for other listing sites like a community switch. So in Canberra, the local radio station, the FM station owns a community switch. How do you get onto it? Listing your event on here, and then throughout the week, they'll pull things onto radio. So have a think about getting some of those free listings. Remember I said talk about things at arm's length. So I want you to actually think about other people in your community. So who is it that you can actually speak to? Do you have current participants, members, or I'll call them customers, that you actually do work with? So can you actually give them VIP access or first release tickets? Can you use them as volunteers and get them involved to help you register and then tell a friend? So start with the people that you know before the audiences that you don't. Can you develop business or organisational partnerships? And the next session is going to talk about this in detail. But whatever you do, make sure that you understand that it's a reciprocal partnership. Whatever you do with business, you need to make sure that you're returning value for them. The Urban Hustle guys did some community outreach with businesses. They wrote a letter to businesses, they went door knocking, they developed a list of people they wanted to target, and then they got everybody's interest and they had a database. And then they went back to say, well, who can we speak to here? What are they going to be doing for us? How do we have to follow up? And that was actually the start of their sponsorship list, their micro activation list. And then when they come back in the second year, they can then go back and start with those people. They're not starting from scratch every single time. So even the big plan had a secondary plan as part of it, and then this had a list of businesses that they were trying to target. One of the final things that I want to talk about today is inspiring your volunteers. Why don't we just give them a sexy name rather than being volunteers on a subcommittee? Oh, really? That gives me a migraine. What I'd love you to do is call them a street team. And a street team is classically used in the music industry. And this is a team of volunteers that you can inspire to be part of it. They can be shareholders. They wear your brand and they share your story. Get these people involved, and what can you give back to them? They themselves are normally the keen beans, the enthusiastic ones, the ones that want to talk about and share and promote. They're like the micro promoters, but we call them our street team. The street team might just need to be fed, might just need to be watered. They might just need a free t-shirt. They might just need the kudos of the recognition. So sit down and work out whether you can pull a team of volunteers together. The golden rule: they do never join a committee. They are not here to sit and be part of the overall governance thing. They're here to support the marketing activities for what the actual event requires. They could be involved for a week, they could be involved for 3 months. But remember, you've got to keep the enthusiasm high, so do not burn out your street team. But there's people out there that would love to volunteer for events. You just need to create a way to do it and something that allows them to have fun whilst doing it as well. Where's the recognition? And make sure at the end of your event, they get singled out for a really big thanks, because they're the people that are going to be able to double and triple the activation time that you actually have. So finally, the least sexy end of the marketing thing. I started with a boring planning. I'm going to finish with a boring evaluation, but it is important, right? Ticket sales, social media, influencer responders, how many stories do we get in the media? You need to think about those SMART goals from earlier. What were the tactics? And when you plan them, how are we going to evaluate? Remember, you need to work it all the way through. And I want you to evaluate your success, because if we can build on the information and knowledge and learn year on year, or learn from people that have run these events before, that's going to set us up for success. There's no new ideas in marketing. There's no new ideas in event marketing, but there's ideas that are going to work for your audience. There's ideas that are going to be work better in your community. And there's things that are going to work better than others. And a lot of these ideas also, and things that we've been talking about, is contained in the National Science Week. How to generate publicity for your event guide. I think that's great. All of my materials today are going to be going up online, and I know that this was just tip of the iceberg to talk about today, but I'm happy to take questions now. And remember, there is so many different things that you can be doing. The main thing that I want you to think about when it comes to running an event is start with a really great plan. Make sure that your tactics and resources are aligned with your goals. Make sure that your people and your resources are on board, and start with the simple things first. Remember, I also said you need to make sure that you give yourself twice as long as you think anything's going to take. So thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Todd. There's a lot to marketing and a lot in there for a short time frame. So hope you all stayed with it. We now do have some time for questions. So we've got time for a couple of questions. If you do have them, just put them in the little speech bubble on the side with the question marks, and that will come through as a question that we can put through to Todd. But I will start with one of the ones that we got before the session while others think of theirs. I guess what's specifically directed towards youth, what are ways to get youth involved in an event, I guess, or to market to youth?
3 really tough markets: youth, doctors and teachers. Out of those 3, the problem with engaging youth is we call them youth, and we don't understand that even at any age, different markets still like different things. So for starters, if we're talking about youth, are we talking about 10 to 14-year-olds? Are we talking about 14 to 18-year-olds? And normally with youth, we'll have influencers and co-decision makers. So if there's parents involved, don't forget that if you've got an event where a parent needs to be involved to help facilitate and make that decision, they're part of your audience as well. So you want to make sure that you're not just talking young people's terms about this event, you're also considering who are the purchasing decision makers as part of it. But one of my best one of my best ideas for advice is, regardless of what age that you are, you've always got someone from your target demographic involved in your event development. So please don't go and decide what young people are doing these days. If you're in your mid-30s or if you're in your 50s or 60s organising an event, don't decide what you think is going to be great for young people. There's a lot of youth that don't use Facebook, right? So they're on other apps, but I spoke about influencers today, and the thing that I do know about young people in social media, for good or bad, are very impressionable. So if you can set up your street team with people of the same age range and demographic and support them to create content, the ability to say that I'm going along to this event and what it all is, they can out themselves as being part of the promotional crew for the event. But I find influencer marketing is really good for the youth market. And also we need to create low barriers to entry for the youth market. So don't make it a big process to register or pay. And I came into the example the other day, my 19-year-old nephew, I needed to send him 20 bucks. And he goes, "Oh, just beam it to me." I go, "Beam it to you?" And he goes, yeah, you set up this app. I go, "Cool, I set up the app." And he goes, "Why doesn't it work?" And I go, "They want EFTPOS card. I only have a credit card." So think about when you're actually got your registration for your event, can you make it as easy to attend the event as it is to hop on an electric scooter in Canberra? And if you know what an electric scooter is, you know what I'm talking about. Come, scan, go, we're off and running. Also work in partnership with other brands. Youth are always looking for brand association opportunities. So is there another brand that's already established in a market that you can get involved with your event? And I'm not talking about for sponsorship, I'm talking about for brand association. So there's a couple of ideas for you with the youth market.
Wonderful, thanks, Todd. So we have another question here about those street teams that you were talking about. How do you target or drum up interest for your street team?
Yeah, so normally most street teams that I've seen that have been developed have always been a friend of a friend that have been involved with the core organisation of an event, because what normally happens is the enthusiasm of the core organisers will always turn up in a chat at a dinner party or a party, or you'll be talking to friends saying, "Oh, I can't come this afternoon because I'm organising the event." And yeah, tell me a bit more about the event. So for me, street team is always 1 degree of separation. Have a look on your LinkedIn, have a look on Instagram, have a look on Facebook. And if you are in socials, actually put it out there and do a bit of a call out. We're looking for people to come and get involved with the street team. Have a few people and have 1 or 2 people that are actually involved with recruitment of other people. Another one that I've seen is commonly on uni notice boards, and also another thing is school notice boards, and also in the event, when you've launched the event, don't be afraid to put out there saying we're looking for volunteers to get involved. Please don't say that like 2 days before the event, because I know that it might be a bit disorganised. Make sure one of your long lead ideas is getting street team volunteers involved, and then you'll get the most out of them as well. But start with your whole friend, invite friend, go through social networks, go a little bit further afield, but make it really grassroots. This isn't an official sign up, get paid to do this sort of thing. This is relying on goodwill, and you need to have enough people on your street team where you absolutely allow people to drop out and don't run it like a really tough governance organisation. Do it as something that you'll appreciate, whatever they can put in, and make the expectations of those people realistic. So 10 people doing really small things is going to be a better street team than 2 people doing 10 really massive things that they're never going to have time for.
Awesome. All right. I think we've got time for one more question, and this is one that is probably relevant for a lot of people. How do you identify and reach the audiences you didn't know you were missing?
How do you know that you're missing them if you weren't able to reach them? It's kind of like it's a self-answering question there. One of the things to start with, and it comes back to your plan, the most important thing that I tell people to do with target audience is talk to the people that you already know and aim to expand the base of the people most likely to attend. So don't have this missing part of your life where you go, you know what, I really think that we should extend our target market to young people between the ages of 14 to 19 that have ginger hair. Well, why are they the people that we actually want to speak to? Are they the ones that are going to have the best experience? Are they the ones that are going to get the most out of this? So be really realistic at the start with your target market, and don't worry about the people that you may never get, because remember, you want people to participate in an event. You're not running a behavioural change campaign where you want to get people that have never been engaged in science or STEM activities to all of a sudden think about this amazingly for the first time. By chance, you'll get some of those people, right? By chance. But try to build on the base that has already been established. If you're running an event for the first time, look at the types of people that have turned up to other events, speak to other event organisers, and try to leverage often an understanding of who their target audience is. But remember, a target audience is just where you're starting. It's not about expanding your market out to every single person in the whole entire world. So if you wanted to reach audiences that you actually didn't know existed, you're going to have to do tactics that speak to new audiences. But remember, they might not be the right target market for you in the first place. If you really want to, I guess, start reaching new markets, do it, you know, by inches, not by yards. Just do it slowly. Other organisations might be able to expose that message for you, and that's where I guess partnerships and sponsorships can actually come in. One of the greatest aims of having a business partner, a corporate partner, a community partner on board is to expose you to a new audience that they might own, that you might find it really hard to reach. So coming back to that teacher's question, is there somebody in the teaching community that is part of the National History Teachers Association? Real thing, or the National Science Teachers Association? Is there somebody as part of that can take your message into their community so you don't just have to go over the top and try to throw some advertising hand grenades? Can they actually take it in for you and address a market that is already identified, but it might be people that don't know about your message? So there's enough people out there that are already your target audience that you don't know, rather than actually finding new people that you didn't know existed or might not enjoy your experience in the first place. So just keep your expectations in check.
Wonderful. Thank you, Todd. Unfortunately, this does bring us to the end of our session today. Just a reminder that we have the poll on the side. So if you can see the little bar graph on the right-hand side, there are 5 poll questions. So when you go in, you click on it, one will pop up, you click the answer, then you click submit, and then scroll to the next one. So you have to click submit for each individual one. I know it's annoying, but please make sure you do that, or you'll only answer one question. And I know that's not what you want. So thank you all for attending today. I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I learned a lot from today. We do have another session coming up on Tuesday, the 11th of May, the same time, 12 till 1 p.m. And this session's on engaging with partners and sponsors and will be delivered by Dr. Graham Walker from the ANU. And I am putting the event registration link in the chat, but you will also be emailed this as well. I'd like to let everyone know as well, if you're based in the ACT National Science Week grant applications are open now until Sunday, the 2nd of May. So this is for events to be run during National Science Week, which is in August from the 14th to the 22nd, and I'm putting the link to apply for those in the chat for you as well. If you are interested, I guess you've been inspired by today and are keen to run an event, there are grants out there for that. Otherwise, be sure to like Inspiring the ACT and Australian Science Communicators Canberra on Facebook to see more upcoming events, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one. Thank you very much, everyone.